What is up, guys? It's your boy, Rick. What's with all the Gambit quotes? Akakis here. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button to support the channel, and let me know what you think my next intro should be. That comment section is out of control. Alright, today, as you're seeing in the background gameplay, we're going to be talking about how to turn your hand cannons into absolute DPS monsters, capable of being used in key parts of raid boss fights. That's right, your simple little hand cannon that you've been using in PvP and to kill red bars can now be used to take down raid bosses. How is that possible? Well, let's get started. But just before we do, thanks to my partnership with ASTRO, I'm going to be giving away a pair of ASTRO A40s plus the mix amp. Guys, if you want to enter, all you got to do is like the video, make a comment, share this with 100 people, make a Facebook post about it, go to your neighbors. I'm just playing. All you really got to do is follow me on Twitter at RickCacus and tweet at me something with the hashtag WitchCacus, like witch queen, but worse. And I'll be giving it away in a couple of days. Guys, if you're impatient, you can always click the link in the description down below. Use code CacusHD to get a discount on any Astro or heck Logitech product. And so let's get started. So the main ingredient here when it comes to absolutely boosting your hand cannon DPS through the moon is the Lucky Pants exotic leg armor for the Hunter. These have been around since vanilla Destiny 2, and they've been kind of memed on as a terrible exotic. They have really not seen any sort of substantial play until now, because with Season of the Lost, they received a substantial rework. So, the intrinsic exotic perk is a legally modded holster. When you ready a fully loaded hand cannon that deals kinetic damage or a damage type that matches your subclass energy type, each hit from that hand cannon increases the damage of the next shot for a short time against a combatant, which is a PvE enemy. Hand cannons ready faster and are more accurate immediately after swapping to them. Now, the swapping has kind of always been a thing, but it's that increased damage against PvE combatants that we're really focusing on today. So here's how it's going to work. As you can see right here, if I swap to my hand cannon, I can't just have it out, I must have a different weapon out and then swap to it. Then I start shooting this enemy, I'm gonna hit for more and more and more and more damage with each shot, eventually maxing out at a ×10 damage bonus. But here's the important part. That damage bonus is only going to scale up and last for about 5 seconds. After that point, you're actually going to get a debuff on the side of your screen called Out of Luck. The damage bonus will completely go away, and during these 10 seconds that you get this debuff, you can't get this damage bonus again. So even if you swap off to and swap back to your fully loaded hand cannon, you won't get that damage buff. You have to wait till it goes away, and then you can perform that maneuver again. I also want to make it clear that yes, that fully loaded part is something you have to be very aware of. That is something that even during testing sometimes we forgot about. You need to make sure your hand cannon is fully loaded when you swap to it, or else you don't get any sort of damage bonus. So don't like shoot and then swap back. It'll screw you over. Now that's how it works. Let's see it in action. So I have a selection of 5 exotic hand cannons with perks having to do with damage output. These are the 5 I felt like would get the biggest bonus from the Lucky Pants. Feel free to test other exotics that I didn't cover today. So first off, we have the Hawk Moon. Of course, the Paracausal Shot exotic perk massively increases the damage of the last shot if you land all precision shots. And I even have one with surplus to increase the reload speed. So how did the Hawk Moon perform? Well, we did one phase of Lucky Pants damage bonus, so as soon as we got out of luck, we jumped off the map and checked our damage numbers, and as you can see in this 5-second window, we were hitting for an impressive around 140,000 damage, upwards of 150,000 damage. Now, you're actually going to see that this is the worst of all of the weapons we test today, and that's because the Paracausal Shot, according to Bungie for balancing reasons, actually doesn't scale with Lucky Pants. So it just does kind of a normal damage, and that is definitely a big downside. But let's move on from there to another great exotic hand cannon, the Malfeasance. So this thing will actually have explosive slugs that detonate after a certain amount of shots, dealing extra damage, and it's the only exotic 180 RPM hand cannon in the game, so it's going to shoot its rounds of its 20 round magazine pretty darn fast and scale up with Lucky Pants pretty darn fast. And you can see the results right here. Against the Templar, we were all hitting for a very impressive over 250,000 damage, upwards of 270,000 damage with the Malfeasance. So it absolutely blasts past the Hawkmoon into first place. But moving on from there, the next hand cannon we're testing is the Last Word. This gets a precision damage bonus when firing from the hip and has a much faster than normal 225 rounds per minute to build stacks very, very fast. Now with this thing, as you can see, it absolutely scaled up in damage fast, but it also ran out of ammo fast, needing a reload in the middle of that damage phase. So, therefore, the numbers are kind of all over the place. It does deal a significant amount of damage, again doing northwards of 250,000 damage, but we also had more people doing less damage because they were, hit off target. Hip firing can be a little bit difficult at range, but again, if you do everything perfect, one guy did over 300,000 damage. Probably snuck in a rocket launcher shot, but that's what it is. But moving on from there, the next hand cannon we have here is the Crimson. This thing fires in a 3-round burst and has a huge 24-round magazine, and each shot in that burst is going to scale up in damage. So this thing has a lot of potential to do an outrageous amount of DPS. Well, how did it perform? As you can see, pretty darn well, but not as well as you may think, doing approximately, 125, upwards of 140,000 damage, but kind of falling a little bit behind, just barely, the Malfeasance and the potential of the Last Word. However, I would say the Last Word is the most inconsistent. But moving on from there, the last hand cannon we're testing here is the only special hand cannon in the game, the Ariana's Vow. And yes, even though this is a special weapon and does significantly more damage than every other hand cannon per shot, this also does work with the Lucky Pants. So, how well? Well, as you can see right here, this thing does a phenomenal amount of damage, and in those short 5 seconds, we were pretty much all capable of doing above 300,000 damage, with the top people touching above 350,000 damage. Like, this thing is clearly on top. Keep in mind though that to get this damage bonus, you will need to be on a solar subclass because the Ariana's Vow is solar, which means you can't tether for additional damage. In fact, we never used tethers, wells, or bubbles throughout any of these testings, and we're still taking down raid bosses. Keep that in mind, guys. So, as soon as we got these results, we proceeded to melt the Templar with every single one of these hand cannons, except for the Hawkmoon. So, let's talk about how to incorporate these numbers and this potential into an actual loadout for DPS. Of course, you could technically just stand there, shoot all of your hand cannon shots, and then wait for the damage to come back, switch off, switch back on, and get that damage boost. But that's very inconsistent. What you instead want to do is fill that downtime with something else. So, I was using the Behringer's Memory, which is a legendary heavy grenade launcher, and it had auto-loading holster. This is exactly what you want, because once you expend that crazy high hand cannon DPS with the Lucky Pants, switch to your heavy grenade launcher, and by the time it takes to shoot off all of your shots with one magazine, you've only got about 3 seconds left. So you can switch to a sniper, do a little bit of damage with that, and as soon as that debuff goes away, you can switch back to your hand cannon for that insane DPS. The thing is, like, during those 5 seconds, like, being able to do, for example, with the Ariana's Vow, 300,000+ damage. With the Malfeasance, 250,000 damage in 5 seconds. That does actually compete with a lot of other high DPS options. It's no sleeper simulant, but the sleeper simulant doesn't have infinite ammo. So I could see, if ammo is an issue, this actually becoming used in certain damage phases. Because why not just use your special and your heavy to clear ads no problem, and your hand cannon, and then when the boss does arrive, you use that as your main source of DPS. And again, you never have to worry about running out of ammo. You can use different perks. Like usually you'd have to use ammo finders, ammo scavengers, heck, even ammo reserves, taking up so much of your energy for a DPS phase involving heavies and specials. So being able to use your primary frees up a bunch of different potential perk combos and other options. So that is a really interesting new development when it comes to damage output. This is certainly a very fun exotic to use. I would highly recommend, if you haven't tried this out, do so. Guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.